Hey y'all, greetings from Trinidad Lake State Park. I had to think about where I was. As you can see, it's incredibly beautiful here too. This is our last stop before we head home, and I'm just soaking up the last bits of peace that I can before I have to go back to work and all of the hustle and bustle of everything. We have been here, like we got here last night, did the overnight camping thing, did a walk this morning, tried to walk a trail, and got to the point where I looked at it and I was like, this is straight downhill. I'm not going to be able to get back up. So we're going to turn around. But Kiri got a good walk in. She seems to be doing really well while we've been here. I feel like she knows we're back in Colorado and headed home. So I wanted to kick off a series that I'm calling Real Talk on the Road, where I share just some things that I've been learning as I've tried to learn to live and thrive despite living with the ups and downs of chronic illness, the unpredictability of it, and all of the things that come into it while still pursuing part-time van life because I can't be full-time right now. And I've been really thinking about this post that I saw on Facebook before I left Houston, where someone was talking about how it was a woman in one of the solo women's groups where she had been living in her vehicle for a year now and she absolutely hated it. She didn't like the unpredictability, not knowing where she was going to park, the fear of getting the knock, not knowing where, water, electricity, all of the things are going, how everything is exponentially more complicated in a vehicle when you're living out of it or just living any kind of counterculture life. Because that, in a brick and mortar home, you can flip a switch and have water. You flip a switch and you have electricity. You don't have to wonder where that's coming from. But with living in a vehicle, living in a van, traveling in a van, all of that stuff is up in the air, which, gosh, my time at Lake Meredith drove that point home as I watched my battery dwindle down into the teens and it wasn't recharging. So I totally get it. And like all of the comments that were there, were really supportive and people trying to offer solutions to the pieces of the things that are making life frustrating for this person. It's one of the reasons why I love that solo women's Nomads group. Everyone's really supportive. But at the same time, it made me really think that this life isn't for everybody. Like this type of travel, this type of living, this type of dwelling is not for everyone. And like I've talked about that because for my sister, not an option for her. She wants a bed and breakfast. She wants a hotel, hot showers, and all of the comforts of home, even if she's not at home. For me, I've been camping for several decades. And so going a couple days without a shower, sleeping on the floor, cooking my meals outside, like all of that is completely normal. There are people that have talked about not having, flushable toilets is a deal breaker for them. For me, I'm like, whatever, composting seems to work. Also digging a hole in the ground also works. So like knowing that, everybody has their preferences and things that they're willing to put up with and things that they're not. It's not for everybody and that's okay. And I think that there are several people on the channel who are contemplating this life, are, in the process of figuring out what rig they want, are just starting out, are, thinking and dreaming about traveling in their trailers or their campers or just whatever. I think most of them have done it before, but there are some people that have never done it, and they're kind of asking the question of whether or not this is for them. Now, for the woman on Facebook, it didn't sound like it was a choice. It sounded like she was forced to come up with a solution that works for housing because she was like priced out of the housing market. Totally understand that. But for people like me, like we love it. I'm actually 3 hours away from home and I don't want to go home. I'm like prolonging this as long as I can. I'm soaking up nature, peace, perfect weather, the awesome smells that are out here that I can actually smell today. Super excited about that. But for other people, this would not be a thing. It would not be joyful. It would not be peaceful. It would not give them life. And I think if this is not something that you're choosing or you choose it, because sometimes you got to try something out and decide, if it's for you or not. You choose it and then you're like, you know what, I actually don't like this. What do you do? I think the big thing is that you pivot, you figure out, you pinpoint what is the issue? What's the thing that's not a good fit? And then you make changes accordingly. So For this person, it sounded like it was a lot of things. For me, the setup, tear down of like tent camping and things like that got to be too much with my chronic fatigue. And I wanted something that was less labor intensive. So I ended up with the van. Now, the Sprinter was not my first choice. It sounds weird to say that. I know it does. I know it sounds weird. But if you followed the channel for any period of time, you know that my first choice was a minivan. I wanted a micro camper that I built out with all of the components I have from decades of camping, things that I've loved, things that I've kept, things that I've purchased in the hope that I would be able to do that. And 8 years into trying to make this thing work, people who know and love me in real life said, hey, you're going to hate not being able to stand up. And also, you have a very large dog who doesn't like traveling. Do you really want that in a minivan? And I had to pivot, and I think that if you try this and you decide it's not for you, pivoting is okay. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. It is really hard to make that mental and emotional shift from the dream that you thought it would be or the answer to your prayers that you thought it would be and figure out something else to do that works better for you. But that's just it. It's got to work for you. And in this year, especially as I was at Lake Meredith celebrating my 50th birthday, I was reevaluating a lot of things and trying to figure out like what's working and what's not. What gets me closer to my dream of part-time van life, living at least a portion of the year, traveling in beautiful places and great weather and living in peace and all of that stuff. And what is prohibiting that, and then making decisions accordingly. I had to do that last year where with my job, I don't know if I've talked about it as blatantly on the channel as I have in real life, but I ended up leaving my old job with a team that I loved because the rules changed. And all of a sudden they wanted everybody to be back in the office 4 to 5 days a week. And I said, absolutely not. Not only can my body not handle that, but that goes against my desire to live part-time van life. Can't do that if you are required to be on site 4 to 5 days a week. And so I made the really hard decision of leaving my job and finding another one that was mostly remote. It's not fully remote, but mostly remote and very flexible. And that pivot was hard. I was leaving a team that I really loved with a leader that I really respected, who stepped down and made the decision a lot easier to leave. But it was comfortable, it was familiar. It was working until it wasn't. And I think that we just have to keep that in mind as we are pursuing whatever your dream looks like, whether it's van life, whether it's, traveling for several months, taking a sabbatical, doing whatever, or, if you're forced to find an alternate solution to your living situation and you end up living in a vehicle and you're planning for that, if it doesn't work, then you got to figure out a way to pivot. This life is way too short to be living and doing things and investing in things that aren't working for you. Now, I say that with the full knowledge that sometimes we're meant to live in the challenge. I don't think that we're meant to live in the challenge long term. I think that we can learn things in the midst of the challenge, but I don't think that we're called to be miserable for years on end. So, with all that being said, I'm speaking to myself as well because, like I said, I don't pivot very easily, and I'm looking at some things in my life and realizing that I need to make some changes. I'm sure I'll talk about those on the channel at some point. Still very fresh, still very much just something I'm thinking through. Haven't made any decisions about, but isn't that life? I feel like it is. So for now, I am going to get back to soaking up all this awesomeness before I have to drive the 3.5 hours home. Yeah, I hope that no matter what it is that you're pursuing, if you try it and it doesn't work, that you figure out how to pivot in a way that still holds the essence of what it is that you were dreaming about, but is a better fit for you. All right, well, if you made it this far, thank you for watching this video. I know this is a short one and it's kind of different, but these are going to be interspersed between travel videos and gear videos. So yeah, until next time, take good care and I'll see you in the next video.